This game was provided to Crits Happen by Dragon's Lair Comic and Fantasy. Check them out online at dlair.net for all your comic and gaming needs.
Hi everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. We're here with another critical review, where we take a game, put it through its paces, and let you know if it's a crit, a hit, or a miss. As always, crits are top of the line and good for almost all gaming groups. Hits are good for a majority of gaming groups and are quite fun, and misses just tend to miss the mark with us, but still could be fun depending on your playstyle and your game group. Today, we are here, once again, sponsored by our friendly local game store, Dragon's Lair in Austin, Texas, to talk about Krosmaster Arena. Now, this was a wildly popular Kickstarter, and it's from Japanime Games. It is all about miniature battles. You're going to be taking these cute, adorable, fluffy little creatures and destroying each other and killing each other, all on a double-sided map, which is comes with the base set. And then, of course, as you can imagine, there's ways for you to create your own areas. There are other maps you can get online. I'm sure there's a big community for this. But more so, this is a physical version of a digital game as well. So if you like the digital game, this is the physical representation of it. If you like the physical representation, there may be an opportunity for you to play a digital version of it as well. But it plays almost exactly the same, except that obviously here you have a little more three-dimension to you. Now, normally when we start off our critical reviews, I have everything out and you see all the components and everything like that. The reason that I haven't done that on this is the first thing I wanted to talk with y'all about is this, which is the box insert. This is, as most of you know, I am a little bit of an insert whore, and I really like it when games do a really good job of helping you store all the components, all the little bits, the chits, the pieces, and this does an excellent job at it. The very first thing to note is that all of these characters have a little plastic base and they snap into their little slots, so they don't move around or shift or anything, which is really, really cool. And as you can see, the base game here, which I believe retails for about $79.99, you get 8 miniatures already, and they're all very different in terms of abilities. We'll talk about that as we go through a little bit of gameplay examples. But there is room for all the different tokens, there is room for all the different scenery, there is room for all the different cards that you have, and as you can see, these are going to be three-dimensional type things that are going to go on the board. There's room for everything, and as you can see with mine, it's already put together. I don't have to break them down in between gaming sessions, which is just really, really cool. One key thing to note, while there's all this really cool bushes and trees and scenery and stuff, these little box cubes, these are a little bit of a challenge to put together. So they're just 5 sides, they have an open bottom, there's nothing on the bottom. But what we had to do is actually take some modeling glue and just kind of glue it together. We used some of the Games Workshop glue that you actually use for miniatures, and it worked just fine. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought it would eat away the cardboard, but it actually did a good job with it. But without glue, they're a little bit shaky. So with glue, they're really, really good. And you may say to yourself, well, who cares about boxes, right? Well, in this game, boxes are pretty cool because they give you a little bit of higher ground and a little bit of an advantage. Now, as you can tell, there's quite a bit to this game. It is a miniatures combat game at its core. So, let's jump into this wild and crazy and cute world of Krosmaster. We're going to talk a little bit about gameplay, we're going to talk a little bit about setup, and then we're going to come back and give you our final thoughts. But for now, grab all of your bow and arrows, grab all of your deadly skulls, and let's jump into the world of Krosmaster. So here you see the setup for a 2-player game of Krosmaster Arena. This looks like quite a bit, and it is quite a bit. But essentially, here's what you have. First, in the base set, you get 8 different characters, each who comes with a card. We'll talk a little bit about the cards and what they mean in a second. But you're able to play 2, 3, or more miniatures against another player. And the game is designed initially for one-on-one play, so 2-player game. There are rules for 4-player games though, so team play or like 2-headed giant type stuff, so you can do that as well. But we'll just talk about a 2-player game for right now. The back 2 rows on each side have little leaf prints, and those are where a miniature can start at the beginning of the game. Now, in addition to this board being populated with scenery, you see there's trees, there's bushes, and there's boxes. There's also these gold coins. You'll notice if I move them off to the side, this space has 2 gold coins on it, which means that I need to put 2 on there at the beginning of the game. comma, which is what the currency is called for the gold coins, is a very, very big part of the game because the comma is going to allow you to purchase upgrades and additional GGs, which are known as the gallons of glory. Now, stick with me on this. This game is very cute and fuzzy, and it gets cute and fuzzy. But the GGs are a big part of the game. Each player is going to start with 6 gallons of glory. It represents their courage, their bravery, and their ability to defend and defeat against other opponents. If at any time you do not have any GGs, you lose the game. And there are 2 main ways that you can lose gallons of glory. The first and most obvious is by someone defeating another miniature. If I have a character here and you or my opponent have a character here and I'm able to come up and defeat you for whatever reason, then you are lost. That character is removed from the board, and on the card in the upper right is a number, and that represents their gallons of glory, and I would take that many from my opponent. So in this case, that character was worth 3. I would take 3 from him. The other way is by rolling for tension. One of the more interesting things this game does is at the very beginning of each player's turn, they're going to roll 2 dice. If those dice match, then there is tension, and each player, myself, the person who rolled, and my opponent, would each lose 1 gallon of glory. Now that means, yes, there is a possibility that you can win this game without defeating every single miniature that your opponent has on the board. We've had games where we've rolled doubles multiple turns in a row, lost like 3 or 4 GGs, and then 1 kill can win the game. I personally like that. It makes it very tense and it makes it a very quick game. We can actually play a 3 versus 3 2-player game in about 30 minutes, which is really, really fun. Now, let's talk a little bit about the character cards and the characters themselves. The characters that come with this game, you get 8 in total, are very vibrant, very colorful, and very fun. They're also very different. Some are fast, some are slow. Some are ranged, some are melee, some are healing. Some are elite and have really cool powers to summon things, but all of them give you a very different feel, which makes for a really high amount of replayability. Now, the cards themselves have some basic statistics on them. The first you'll see are the green square, which is really more of a diamond, the red heart, and the blue star. Now, the green is a movement point, and movement point is really simple. Movement means that if you have 3 movement, you can move 1, 2, 3 spaces unimpeded. Boxes, bushes, and trees you're never allowed to go through, but boxes you're allowed to spend a movement point to move up on top of, because depending on your abilities, that could give you a little bit extra advantage from a range perspective. The heart is your hit points. Very simple. If you take more damage than your hit points, you're dead and your character dies. They're taken off the board and the opponent gains gallons of glory equal to that number in the upper right-hand corner. The AP, which is not analysis paralysis, but action points, which is the star, is how many things you can do on your turn. Now, what does that actually mean by doing? Well, you'll notice that a character has abilities, and the abilities have a star and then a number next to them. The starred number is how many actions it takes to use that actual action. So in the case of, let's say, Oscar Cass, his con ability has a 3-star action, and it has 1 blue damage, which there's different elements of damage in the game. Now, the con is a melee attack, which is what the fist says. There's different icons for different types of attacks. And the 1 is the amount of damage it's going to inflict. Now let's talk a little bit about inflicting damage, because this is a really interesting part of Krosmaster. Let's say Oscar Cass is here, and he has Bada Boom, who is next to him, and he wants to hit him with the con spell. Well, he has to spend half of his action point, so he spends 3 actions to declare he's going to hit Bada Boom with the con spell. He is then going to roll dice and determine how much gets added to that hit. Now you'll notice I say to the hit, not if he hits. This is one of the more interesting things about Krosmaster Arena. I've declared that I'm going to hit Bada Boom with my con, and it deals 1 damage. I'm going to therefore hit automatically and deal 1 damage to him. Now naturally, each player is going to roll an additional die. If there were additional abilities or powers on the character, I could potentially roll more, or if I had equipment, I could potentially roll more. But in this case, I only roll 1, and I would get a result of a crit symbol. That adds an additional damage to Oscar's damage. So Oscar is actually going to be doing 2 damage. So let's quickly take a look at Bada Boom's card. Bada Boom has dodge and lock as powers. Now, those would be great if he was trying to dodge or lock. Now, you may say to yourself, wouldn't he try to dodge this attack? Yes, he would try to dodge an attack in normal layman's speak, but dodge in this game does not refer to attacks. Armor is what you want to be able to deflect damage from an attack. Dodging and locking are 2 totally different things that are linked together. And I'll explain those in a second. But in this case, because Bada Boom does not have armor, he's going to roll just 1 die. If he had the armor power, he could roll 2 dice. He would roll 1, and he would get a boot and a crit symbol, which is a 2-sided roll. He does not get any additional benefits, though. He doesn't get the shield, which is what the armor is, which is right here. Now, if he had gotten that, he could have mitigated 1 damage. But in this case, he takes 2 damage, and he would put 2 on his character card. If Oscar had been damaged, he would steal health, and he would be able to gain 2 health back. So that would have been a really good attack for Oscar. And this is probably the hardest thing about Krosmaster for a miniatures gamer to get into their mind. There are 4 main powers. They are dodge, lock, critical hit, and armor. And of those 4, they're each going to help you when rolling dice. But when you are attacking someone, you are never in a position of trying to hit them. You're in a position of always hitting for at least what the number is next to your spell, and then amplifying that by your powers and your rolls. Once you understand the 4 main powers in the game and how they will help you with adding dice to your rolls, whether you're attacking or defending, it'll become a little bit more familiar. And as you can imagine, there are tons of upgrades to be able to buy that will help you in those areas. Now let's talk a little bit about those upgrades. So the upgrades are very simple. They come in 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. They cost 3, 6, or 12 total, comma. Now, what happens is there's these little circles with these like demon eyes on them that kind of match the background of these. When your character is on one of those squares, they can spend comma equal to the 3, 6, or 12, and they have the choice of taking one of the 2 face-up items or taking a gamble at one of the 2 face-down items. Now, as you can imagine, these things will do everything from give you more movement points, to give you defenses against certain types of attacks, to give you one-time use characters, and even let you bring in and summon additional pets. So there's a lot of different options, and these are really, really highly sought after. But at the end of the day, Krosmaster is about 2 things. It is about positioning and making sure that your characters are in the right space to make their attacks, and plotting your next moves after you've made those attacks. There's a lot of different characters, like for example, Bill Tell is a great archer. He has the ability of long shot, which for 1 action point, he can then, for this turn, Bill Tell's spells gain +3 max range. And you'll notice that his Plaguing Arrow already has a 3 to 8 range, so it now becomes a 3 to 11 range. So there's a lot of different abilities here. Bada Boom is just all about that. He throws bombs all over the board, starts exploding people in the whole 9 yards. There are also a lot of really good variant rules. There are things that will allow you to destroy the scenery so that you can have better line of sight. As you can imagine, the smaller things like the bushes and the crates do not block your line of sight. So like for example, Bill would have line of sight to the king of go balls. However, if he was back here, that tree would be in his way and he would not have line of sight. So there's even some advanced rules you can play with where destroying the scenery could become an advantage to you as well. And it's a very interesting balance between gaining the comma, which is simple as going onto a space that has comma and pulling one up as an action point, spending it on the right equipment, or using your movement and your actions to go out and attack each other. And like I said, because of the rolling for tension in the beginning of the game, that can be a very big thing because it could come down to one kill could win the game. Now, there are a lot more rules that we did not talk about, like boosting your characters with inspiration, being able to do multiple different combos, but as you can tell, there's quite a bit to Krosmaster Arena. But at its heart, it is minis on minis attacking each other for the right to become victorious inside the arena. Krosmaster is a really, really, really fun game. Now, I need to preface this. So if you're a miniatures gamer, if you like playing, the put them together, paint them up, make them look beautiful, tactical war game type miniatures, this may or may not appeal to you. There's really no clear way that I can tell you if it's going to appeal to you or not, other than seeing what you've seen and seeing if it appeals to you. The reason I say that is I used to play a lot of Warhammer, and I used to love a lot of Warhammer. But then as I got older and didn't have as much time, I realized that it takes quite an investment. If you're in that category like me, this is a game that you will actually draw quite a bit of enjoyment from because it gives you that itch of tactically rolling dice, choosing the right abilities for the moment in time, making sure you're moving your characters around the board. You're both being tactigery, I guess is the easiest way to say it, a little bit of strategy and a little bit of tactics, putting into play to run around multiple different scenarios. And that's one of the things I really liked about this game, is that there's no rush in and kill anybody. I mean, you can do that, but you're going to get caught with your pants down in some cases if you do that against the right or wrong opponents. There's all the different comma to pick up. Money is a big thing in this game, being able to get all the different upgrades. And you want to be able to balance who of your characters you run to go get comma and who of your characters you're running to be out there on defense or on offense. And there's just quite a bit of that itch getting scratched from a miniature gamer's perspective. Now that said, not every miniatures gamer we played this with really enjoyed it. Quite frankly, the theme is either you love it or you hate it. And there's really not many people that are in between on this. Most people are not used to taking a little ponytailed, cute little archer. They want an archer that has, some meat on him and some arrows and some flaming shoulder pads and, craziness like that. And the cuteness of this game is kind of deceptive. It takes some miniatures gamers by surprise. They sit down, they read the rules, and they're like, wow, this is actually pretty strategic and pretty complicated. Not so much you don't learn it, but just complicated in terms of enacting all the different strategies you want to enact. So it can take people by surprise in that sense. They may look at this and think, oh, it's just cute, it's fluffy, it's fuzzy, there's not much of a game there. One of the things that I really came away from playing Krosmaster and I really enjoyed is that it is as much of a strategy game as you want to make it. You can play this game very simply 2-on-2 with none of the extra abilities, none of the extra comma, and just go at each other with the cards you have. You can throw in the comma and throw in the upgrades. You could only throw in certain levels of upgrades. It's so customizable that I really, really enjoyed that. Because, again, as a cute, fluffy, fuzzy little game, this is something kids want to play. When we broke this out, the very first thing our kids did was come up and they were like glued to the board. They were like, wow, this is colorful. These figures are cool. They look good. They look neat. What do they do? And they wanted to play. So if you're a dad or a mom that has kids at game, this is a game they're going to want to play. And depending on their level of gameplay depth, you could make this as easy as you want, and you could make this as challenging as you want. And that's something I really thought was a gigantic success with this game. If Ninja Zach, being 8 years old, if him and I want to sit down and just play 2-on-2, mano-y-mano, the cards and rolling dice, it's great and it does a great job. If you want to play 3-on-3, put in some equipment, it does a great job. I mean, it really scales really well. Right? I really enjoyed it. I thought Japanime Games and the design team did a really, really good job on that. Now, there are some things that are interesting to note. So let's first off talk about components. This is the most important thing to me about this game. The components are top notch. The trees and the bushes, they're just cardboard, but they are solid. They stay together and they do not come apart, which is really, really cool. The boxes were really the only gripe. I talked a little bit about that in the beginning. They were a little harder to put together. And the miniatures are phenomenal. These guys are painted superbly. Their detail is excellent. Their caricatures are phenomenal. I mean, each one feels like their own character, and their abilities match up really well, and you can just have a great time playing with these guys. These are, bang for your buck, some of the best miniatures I've seen on the market today. Now, there's some things from a component standpoint I don't like as well. While they are really good, the comma, these little gold coins that are placed on the board, because there's so much happening on the board, there tends to be some times where you kind of lose the comma. And what I mean by that is, with all the trees around, there's sometimes cases where the comma is right behind something and you don't see it. So there's a little bit of standing up and looking over and a little bit of that. I wish the comma from the base set would have been a little bit bigger or a little bit shinier or maybe different color. It tends to blend in a little bit with the board. Now there are some expansion modules and some collector's kits that you can get that will make the coins a little different, but that's going to cost you more obviously if you do that. Now, in terms of gameplay, the gameplay is really damn good. And I don't normally swear on my show, but I have to say it's damn good. The strategies you can employ with your characters are phenomenal in terms of tactic battles and strategic development. Again, it takes you by surprise with that fluffiness, but the way that you can roll dice and you choose to use those abilities or choose to use them for money to upgrade and get better things down the road, there's just a lot of different options. Not so much that you're stuck in analysis paralysis, but enough to where you feel like, okay, even if I lose one of my guys, I'm not completely out of this game. There's always an opportunity for me to play with the best skill of what I know and what's available to purchase that can get me back in this game. And I really enjoyed that. The gameplay flow is very good from turn to turn. There's never really much downtime, and I enjoyed that as well. And that leads me to the experience. The experience of playing Krosmaster is a lot of fun in its physical form. If you like miniatures combat, it's going to scratch a great itch. If you like tactical combat, if you like strategies as you develop into some of the more advanced pieces of the game, there's just quite a bit for everybody involved in this game. However, there's some things that I think that it does better digitally than physically, but also does better physically than digitally. If you compare the two experiences, one of the things that I always felt playing the online version of Krosmaster is that your opponent's moves went very quickly and it was very hard for you to keep up with it. When you're playing against an opponent, it's much easier to take note and keep track of what it is that they're doing. The other thing too is the comma, and I mentioned this earlier where it tends to get lost. The comma on the digital version is much easier to keep track of and much easier to look at how much you're gaining, what you could gain by moving around, what you could spend it on, and how you could plan those moves out, versus the physical version of just plain finding the comma and then figuring out how to get to where you want to get. Overall, at the end of the day, Krosmaster is a completely enjoyable game. And even if you were to spend the full $79.99 retail price, you're getting a massive bang for your buck for this game in terms of replayability, in terms of great quality product, and in terms of really fun gameplay. So at the end of the day, this leads us to only one place, and that's Critsville. Population, Krosmaster Arena. It gets a crit from critshappen.com. We hope that you've enjoyed this critical review, but we'd love to hear from you. Take some time and leave comments below on the YouTube channel. Of course, you can join in the discussion on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus by searching Crits Happen or at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you enjoy all of your head-smashing, box-climbing, arrow-slinging times inside of Krosmaster Arena. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.